Hello, happy Thursday. Welcome back to my quarantine story time, Read Aloud, or quarantine story hour if you prefer, even though it's usually not quite anymore. But today, as we have been with War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. This translation is by Richard Pevear and Larissa Volokhonsky. Just giving credit where it's due. If anyone tuned in a couple days ago on Tuesday, I was cut off mid-reading by YouTube's AI. I guess because of COVID-19, fewer humans are monitoring live channels, and there's more AI and computer controlled. So they're cutting more things that they think might violate YouTube's code of conduct. And they said that a lot of it will probably be fake, incorrect flagging of violations. So I was able to appeal, and it's back up on my channel. So I will drop the link to probably the playlist. I have a playlist of all the live readings I've done so far. I have that playlist available on my channel, so I'll probably drop that link in the bottom of this video so you can catch up if this is your first time tuning in. If you tuned in and then wondered what happened, you can pick up. They're all numbered by volume number, and then part within the volume, and then chapter or segment number within that part. So it's volume dot part dot whatever segment. So the segment number will change. And so far, that's as far as we've gotten. We haven't gotten into another part or volume because this is a 4-pound book, and we're only a few days in. But I think it's about a week. So yay, happy week of listening to War and Peace with me. Let's see what happened in yesterday's reading. I just picked up where the AI had cut me off before and finished that section, which was segment 6. And in that segment, Prince Andrei is trying to get his friend Pierre. First of all, he's saying don't marry because that's the end of your life, especially if you're a man with ambition. And then second of all, he is telling him and encouraging him to make better choices with his life and help figure out what he wants to do with his life. Pierre seems to be a really nice guy, but kind of a flighty sort of chap who isn't able to really fix his mind and do anything, and is kind of fallen in with a crowd in Petersburg that's just partying all the time and gambling and drinking and meeting up with ladies. So he is asking him to kind of distance himself from that crowd, which he says he's going to do. And then right after he leaves, he changes his mind and goes to meet up with them, and they're having a drinking bet and that sort of thing. So he seems to be very easily swayed. So that's where we are. So I'm going to read segment 7 and 8 today. So that's volume 1, part 1, 7 and 8, if you're following along at home. Again, my apologies for my horrible French and my butchering of the Russian names and any random Italian that Tolstoy decides to throw in, because it's going to be a multilingual book. Considering it was written in the original Russian, yeah, there's a lot going on here. Okay, that's all right. So, without further ado, let's jump in. Prince Vasily fulfilled the promise he had given at Anna Pavlovna's soiree to Princess Drubetskoy, who had solicited him for her only son, Boris. A report on him was made to the sovereign, and unlike others, he was transferred to the Semyonovsky Guards Regiment as an ensign. But Boris was not to be appointed adjunct or an attaché to Kutuzov, despite all that Anna Mikhailovna's soliciting and scheming. Soon after Anna Pavlovna's soiree, Anna Mikhailovna returned to Moscow straight to her rich relations, the Rostovs, with whom she stayed in Moscow, and with whom her adored Borenka, just made an ensign in the army and transferred to the Guards, had been brought up and lived for years. The Guards had already left Petersburg on the 10th of August, and her son, who had remained in Moscow to equip himself, was to catch up with them on the way to Radzivilov. At the Rostovs, it was the name day of the Natalias, mother and younger daughter. Since morning, coach and sixes had constantly been driving up and leaving, bringing people with congratulations to the big house of the Countess Rostov on Povarovskaya Street, which was known to all Moscow. The Countess, with her beautiful older daughter, and the guests, who constantly replaced each other, were sitting in the drawing room. The Countess was a woman with a thin, oriental type of face, 45 years old, evidently worn out by children, of whom she had had 12. The slowness of her movements and speech, caused by weakness, gave her an air of importance that inspired respect. Princess Anna Mikhailovna Drubetskoy, as a member of the household, sat right there, helping with the business of receiving the guests and occupying them with conversation. The young people were in the back rooms, finding it unnecessary to take part in the receiving visits. The Count met the guests and saw them off, inviting them all to dinner. Much obliged to you, mon cher or mon cher, he said, mon cher or mon cher, to everyone without exception and without the slightest nuance, whether they were of higher or lower standing than himself. For myself and the dear name-day ladies, see that you come for dinner. You'll offend me if you don't, mon cher. I cordially invite you on behalf of the whole family, mon cher. These words he said with the same expression on his full, cheerful, and clean-shaven face, with the same strong handshake and repeated short bows to everyone without exception or variation. Having seen off a guest, the Count would return to the gentleman or lady who was still in the drawing room, moving up an armchair and with the look of a man who loves life and knows how to live it, spreading his legs dashingly and putting his hands on his knees, he would sway significantly, offering his surmises about the weather, discuss health, sometimes in Russian, sometimes in very poor but self-confident French, like me. And again, with the look of a man weary but firm in the fulfillment of his duty, would go to see people off, smoothing the thin gray hair over his bald spot, and again invite them to dinner. Occasionally, on returning from the front hall, he would pass through the conservatory and the servants' rooms to a big marble hall where a table of 80 settings had been laid, and looking at the servants carrying silver and china, opening out tables and spreading damask tablecloths, he would call Dmitri Vasilievich, a nobleman who managed all his affairs, and say, well, Mitenka, let's see that it's all nice. Right, he would say, looking over the enormous opened-out table. The main things the set out, so, and sighing contentedly, he would go back to the drawing room. Marya Lvovna Karagin, with daughter, the Countess's enormous footman announced in a bass voice, coming to the door of the drawing room. The Countess pondered and took a pinch of a gold snuff box from her husband's portrait on it. Took a pinch from a gold snuff box with her husband's portrait on it. Sorry. I'm worn out with these visits, she said. Well, she'll be the last I receive. She's so prim. Ask her in, she said to the footman in a sad voice, as if to say, well, so finish me off. A tall, stout, proud-looking woman and her round-faced, smiling daughter came into the room, rustling their skirts. Chérie comtesse, il est longtemps. Elle était une pauvre enfant à Baldes Rozmalski et la comtesse Apraksin. J'ai été si heureuse. Women's voices were heard, interrupting each other and merging with the rustling of skirts and the moving of chairs. That sort of conversation began, which is designed to last just long enough so that one can get up at the first pause with a rustling of the skirts, say, Je suis bien charmée, la sainte de mon nom, et la comtesse Apraksin. And again, with a rustling of skirts, go back to the front hall, put on a fur coat or a cloak, and drive off. The conversation turned to the main news of the town at that time, the illness of the rich and famous beau of Catherine's time, old Count Buzukov, and his illegitimate son Pierre, who had behaved so improperly at Anna Pavlovna Scherer's soiree. I'm very sorry for the poor Count, said the guest. He was in poor health to begin with, and now this distress on account of his son, it will kill him. What do you mean? Asked the Countess, as if she did not know what the guest was talking about, though she had already heard the cause of Count Buzukov's distress a good 15 times. It's modern upbringing. While still abroad, the guest went on, this young man was left to himself, and now in Petersburg, they say, he did such awful things that he's been banished by the police. You don't say, said the Countess. He chose his acquaintances poorly. Princess Anna Mikhailovna mixed in. Prince Vasily's son, he and a certain Dolokhov, they say, were up to God knows what, and they both suffered for it. Dolokhov has been broken to the ranks, and Bezukov's son has been banished to Moscow. As for Anatoly Korygin, his father somehow hushed it up, but they did banish him from Petersburg. Why, what on earth did they do? Asked the Countess. They're perfect ruffians, especially Dolokhov, said the guest. He's the son of Maria Ivanovna Dolokhov, such a respectable lady. And what then? Can you imagine? The three of them found a bear somewhere, put it in the carriage with them, and went to the actresses. The police came running to quiet them down. They took a policeman and tied him back to back with the bear and threw the bear into the Moika. So the bear goes swimming about with the policeman on him. A fine figure the police must have cut, mon cher, cried the Count, dying with laughter. Ah, how terrible! What is there to laugh at, Count? But the ladies could not help laughing themselves. They barely managed to save the poor fellow, the guest went on. That's how intelligently the son of Count Kirill Vladimirovich Bezukhov amuses himself, she added. And I heard he was so well-bred and intelligent. There's what all this foreign upbringing leads to. I hope no one receives him here, despite his wealth. They want to introduce him to me. I decidedly refused. I have daughters. What makes you say this young man is so wealthy? Asked the Countess, leaning away from the girls who at once pretended they were not listening. The man has only illegitimate children, it seems. Pierre, too, is illegitimate. The guest waved her hand. He has a score of them, I should think. Princess Anna Mikhailovna mixed into the conversation, clearly wishing to show her connections and her knowledge with all the circumstances of society. The thing is, she said significantly and also in a half-whisper, Count Kirill Vladimirovich's reputation is well known. He's lost count of his children, but this Pierre was his favorite. How good-looking the old man was, said the Countess. Even last year, I've never seen a handsomer man. He's quite changed now, said Anna Mikhailovna. So, as I was about to say, she went on, Prince Vasily is the direct heir to the whole fortune, through his wife. But the father loved Pierre very much, concerned himself with his upbringing, and wrote to the sovereign, so that when he dies, he's so poorly that they expect at any moment, and Lorraine has come from Petersburg. No one knows who will get this enormous fortune, Pierre or Prince Vasily. 40,000 souls, and millions of rubles. I know it very well because Prince Vasily told me himself. And Kirill Vladimirovich is my uncle twice removed through my mother, and he's Borya's godfather, she added, as if ascribing no importance to this circumstance. Prince Vasily came to Moscow yesterday. He's going to do some inspecting, I'm told, said the guest. Yes, but entre nous, said the Countess. It's a pretext. He's come, essentially, to see Count Kirill Vladimirovich, having learned that he was so poorly. However, mon cher, that was a nice stunt, said the Count, and noticing that the elder guest was not listening, he turned to the young ladies. A fine figure that policeman cut, I imagine. And picturing how the policeman waved his arms, he again burst into a resounding bass-voiced laughter, which shook his whole stout body, as people laugh who always eat and especially drink very well. So please do come for dinner, he said. Section 8. Silence ensued. The Countess looked at the guest with a pleasant smile, without concealing, however, that she would not be upset in the least if the guest got up and left. The guest's daughter was already smoothing her dress, looking questioningly at her mother, when suddenly from the neighboring room came the sound of several men's and women's feet running to the door, the crash of a tripped-over and fallen chair, and a 13-year-old girl ran in, bundling something in her short muslin skirt, stopped in the middle of the room. It was obvious that she had run so far, inadvertently miscalculating the distance. At the same moment, a student in a raspberry-colored collar and an officer of the guards, a 15-year-old girl, and a fat, red-cheeked boy in a child's jacket appeared in the doorway. The Count jumped up and, swaying, spread his arms wide around the running child. Ah, here she is, he shouted, laughing. The name-day girl, mon cher name-day girl. Mon cher, il est un temps pour tout, said the Countess, feigning sternness. You always spoil her, Ellie, she said to her husband. Bonjour, mon cher, je vous félicite, said the guest. Quel délicieux enfant, she added, turning the mother. The dark-eyed, big-mouthed, not beautiful, but lively girl, with her child's bare shoulders popping out of her bodice from running fast, with her black ringlets all thrown back, her thin bare arms, and her little legs in lace-trimmed knickers and low shoes, was at the sweet age when a girl is no longer a child, but the child is not yet a young lady. Wriggling out of her father's arms, she ran to her mother, and paying no attention to her stern remark, buried her face in her mother's lace mantilla and laughed. She laughed at something, talking fitfully about the doll she took out from under her skirt. You see, my doll, Mimi, you see? And Natasha could say no more. Everything seemed funny to her. She fell on her mother and burst into such loud and ringing laughter that everyone else, even the prim guests, laughed involuntarily. Well, off you go, you and that ugly thing, said the mother, pushing her daughter away with feigned gruffness. This is my younger one, she turned to the guest. Natasha, tearing her face momentarily from her mother's lace wrap, looked up at her through tears of laughter and hid her face again. The guest, forced to admire the family scene, found it necessary to take some part in it. Tell me, my dear, she said, addressing Natasha, what is this Mimi to you? Your daughter, it must be? Natasha did not like the tone of condescension to childish talk in which the guest addressed her. She made no reply and gave the guest a serious look. Meanwhile, all this younger generation, Boris, the officer, son of Princess Anna Mikhailovna, Nikolai, the student, and the Count's eldest son, Sonia, the Count's 15-year-old niece. Meanwhile, all this younger generation, Boris, the officer, son of Princess Anna Mikhailovna, Nikolai, the student, the Count's eldest son, Sonia, the Count's 15-year-old niece, and Petrushka, the youngest child, all settled themselves in the drawing room and obviously tried to keep within the limits of propriety the animation and gaiety which their every feature still breathed. It was clear that there in the back rooms from which they had all come running so precipitously, the talk was merrier than the talk here about town gossip, the weather, and the Comtesse Apraxine. They glanced at each other from time to time and could barely hold back their laughter. The two young men, the student and the officer, friends from childhood, were of the same age and both handsome, but they did not resemble each other. Boris was a tall, blond youth with the regular fine features of a calm, handsome face. Nikolai was a curly-haired young man, not very tall, and with an open expression of his face. On his upper lip a little dark hair had already appeared, and his whole face expressed impetuousness and rapturousness. Nikolai blushed as soon as he came into the drawing room. One could see that he was searching for something to say and could not find it. Boris, on the other hand, got his bearings at once and told calmly, jokingly, how he had known that this Mimi, the doll, when she was still a young girl with an unspoiled nose, and how she had grown old in the 5 years he remembered, and how her head had gotten cracked across the entire skull. Having said this, he glanced at Natasha. Natasha turned away from him, glanced at her younger brother, who, with his eyes shut tight, was shaking with soundless laughter, and unable to hold herself back any longer, jumped down and ran out of the room as fast as her quick feet could carry her. Boris did not laugh. I believe you also wanted to go, Maman? Did you need a carriage? He said, turning to his mother with a smile. Yes, go, tell them to make ready, she said, smiling. Boris quietly went to the door and followed Natasha out. The fat boy angrily ran after them, as if vexed at the disturbance that had interfered with his pursuits. And I think I'm going to end it there for today. I have some other things I have to jump on at 4. I have been entreated by my beloved mother to be more, how shall we say, consistent with the time of this, just in case you are really trying to tune in. So to that end, I will try to keep it closer to 3. Yeah, I might even move it a little earlier. Still not sure, but for now, I'll try to keep it closer to 3. You can, I hate to say this, but you can say subscribe to the channel, and then you should get a notification when I'm live. Also, I'm setting up a little flare on Facebook a few minutes before I go live. And if you can't watch me live, that's totally okay. Just like I said, say subscribe to the channel. And even if you're not subscribed, you can still see my playlists. And there's a War and Peace playlist, like I said, that'll have all the videos so you can catch up or go back and listen to one that didn't make any sense, or use it to show your friends how poor my French is and why they should study better when they choose a language. I didn't choose French, but, you know, I did learn some and I should know better. But I don't, so da-da-da. All right, that's War and Peace for today. And stay tuned tomorrow around 3 p.m. for the next section, and we'll see what these crazy kids get up to. Thanks all. Happy Thursday.